Hello, hello, fair business Australians. Rebecca Lloyd coming at you again from Brisbane Northside on a very hot and Queensland day. It is my absolute pleasure to have back with me as my special guest today, Diane Dimitri, a consummate businesswoman, a fighter for all things justice, which she will tell you about. If you haven't caught my previous interview with her, we'll quickly go back over that again today. And we're going to talk about a topic today, which a lot of business owners might think is really woo-woo, or like ethereal, or that's just weird stuff. I don't go in for that. But Diane has proven through her real world business experience that quantum physics and all those Einstein theories actually do work, and not just theoretically, but practically speaking in a business sense. So Diane, welcome again to the Fair Go podcast. It's my absolute pleasure to have you as my guest again. Tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, where you hail from, and just a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today on the interview.
Great to be here again, Rebecca. Thank you very much. I hail from originally Brisbane. I moved down to the Gold Coast many decades ago to take up the job as the assistant director and choreographer at Jupiter's Casino. I've stayed here ever since. I then worked in a local medical centre as a stress and life skills therapist. I then moved into the corporate arena as a special events manager and a tourism manager, and helped establish Robina Town Centre here on the Gold Coast. And then from there, I've moved into my own businesses and have owned an award-winning resort in Vanuatu, and more recently managed Qantas Valet Parking for Qantas for the last 12 years with over 220 staff, most of who stayed with us all the way through. So we've developed a number of systems, a number of skills, and a number of wonderful staff who've stayed with us through that. But unfortunately, because of the government overreach over the last couple of years, that business was then closed down, which was very sad. And I've written 12 books. So lots has been happening, lots.
Yes, absolutely. Gosh, where to start? Folks, for those of you listening via podcast, Diane actually has a pull-up banner behind her. So for those of you who can't see, but Diane, I see that you are obviously very glamorous because you have been in the entertainment industry and you understand how to present yourself. You have written many books, and I also see that you have written what I believe to be the latest of 12 books, which is called Dare to Care. Is it Dare?
Yeah, the book is called Dare, and my latest social initiative to help restore social cohesion in the community is called Dare to Care.
Wow. Now, when it comes to social cohesion, energy is a big thing. We've seen a lot of very negative energy and very distressed energy over the last 2 years with lockdown. As you just said, you lost your own business, and I know we talked off camera a little bit, and you were very upset to have to let a lot of those really great staff that have been with you, I think you said some for 12 years, you had to let them go. So how does energy and all those fourth dimensional stuff that we as Westerners are certainly not taught in school, it's not part of our culture, how have you used those energies throughout what is a very full life? I mean, you had a justice issue that we'll talk about in just a moment. How have you used those mindset and energy frequencies throughout your life to the benefit of your businesses?
One of my favorite scientists was Einstein, and he made a very telling statement many years ago, and he wrote, "Everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. This is not philosophy, this is physics." And if we all stop for a while and switch off from everything that we've been conditioned to think as an ordinary human being, and allow our consciousness to expand a little bit and to absorb what Einstein, who was clearly a genius, writes in this statement: everything is energy. And I believe that we all know that to be true. So we know that the chair that we sit on is energy, and it's vibrating at a certain level, which makes that chair dense enough for us to sit on and not fall through. We know that our glass panes and our windows vibrate at a certain energy, which is dense enough to keep the wind out, but its vibrationary frequency makes it so that we can see through it. And what happens in our lives is that we don't stop long enough to just consider the physics of our life, that a wheel is round and the wheels go round and round on our cars. And that's why we can be transported from A to B. Those wheels are energy. The tires are energy. So if we start to just stop long enough and consider Einstein's statement, which is everything is energy, you start to go, yes, that's true. And we actually experience that. If we're not feeling well, we will say that our energy levels are low and that we're just too tired. That's energy. And so what happens truly is that our energy levels are depleted, then we get sick. You see, our energy goes down firstly, then we become sick. So the second part of that statement is match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. And that's what visualizations are all about. And the sports, the elite athletes have been doing this for decades. They visualize themselves winning a race. They visualize it. They do a lot of mental work on this. They see themselves, if they're swimmers, shooting off from the starting blocks, swimming hard, fast, making that turn really strong, getting out in front. They visualize looking out the corner of their eye and seeing their competitor and being in front, and they visualize their hand hitting the wall first. What they're doing is when they do that, they are lifting their energy in their entire body. They're not just thinking about it, they are energizing it. They're truly energizing it. And that is part of the training process of winners. Now, if that's the reality you want, as Einstein says, you must match that frequency in order for that reality to come to you. So this is not woo-woo. These are techniques that have been used by elite athletes, elite business people, by the people who have been successful for many, many years. And the key is to take those techniques that work and implement them yourself in your own business life. I often say to business leaders, how much time do you spend in your day sitting and actually energizing your business? Just energizing it, not sitting there and going, oh, I don't have enough sales. I don't have enough people. I can't find the staff. Oh God, now I've got to do this. Now I've got to work on the weekend and do the books. Do you see that? Do you see the energy?
You've been reading my diary there, Diane.
So that consistent energy that is one of struggle and conflict and complaint and whinging is not going to bring you a successful business. So we need to take more time out in our business day. And I say to people all the time, you must suspend disbelief. Very important. You can't be sitting there going, yes, I'm winning. I've got lots more sales. Well, actually, I don't. That's really just, no. You have to suspend all disbelief, energize your business. And you can only energize your business if you have a clear vision of what you want it to be. Energize it. See what winning means to you. I would recommend to everybody who's listening or watching now, stop after we finish today, and I want you to write down 5 points of what does success look like to you for the end of 2022. Write them down and then take the time to sit there and energize yourself. See it, feel it, taste it, hear it, sense it. Use all of your senses. Suspend all disbelief and match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but attract that reality in.
A bit of a pointed question here, I suppose a bit of a leading question. Why would you said that you've started Dare to Care, which is a social enterprise. Why would you, having had an award-winning resort in Vanuatu, having had a national business with over 200 staff, you're clearly a very successful businesswoman that practices what she preaches. Why would you choose to, I guess, put that all on the line for a social initiative for the sake of your community? Why would you not just keep that to yourself and either go back into, being a corporate consultant, or go back into earning a 6, 7, or even 8-figure business? Because I'm sure that's highly possible for someone like yourself. Why would you choose a social enterprise and to start to share those laws that you know to be true now with the community?
This all came about because I ran as a candidate for the federal election. And I was very, very motivated, very inspired, and it was really a calling. I felt like the Blues Brothers in the car on a mission from God. That's how I felt. It's like, we've got to save this country. And so I've been very much in that purpose. That has been my purpose for the last 2.5 years, is to save this country, to save our national sovereignty, and to ensure that we leave a legacy for our children and grandchildren that I would be proud of leaving. And so what happened is, in that campaign, I saw the heartbreak that was happening in the community, with people losing their jobs, not being able to go to work because of mandates and government overreach. And though I didn't win the election, I could not leave that community still out there in that much pain. And that's where Dare to Care was born. It just was, it's what I had to do. And so our purpose is to help restore social cohesion. We're dedicated to preserving the Australian way of life, and of course to supporting Australian family values and small business. So we did our first event on the 11th of September with a long table picnic in the park. And it's a driving passion for me to go out there and do whatever I can to help restore social cohesion again, because our social cohesion has been broken because all of the things that are good about Australia are no longer being passed on generationally. And our institutions are now churning out angry young people who want to blame and shame everybody else, and who aren't willing to take any self-responsibility. So for many years, I'm a baby boomer. As baby boomers, we have worked hard. We actually have shifted our frequency and created the realities we wanted.
Yes.
And we always had, I believe, baby boomers always were very much live and let live. Everybody go out there. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. I'll make it happen, and off we go. And we didn't realize what was happening, the slow creep of Marxist theories in our education system, through our governments. And now I work with a lot of baby boomers who are absolutely gobsmacked at what their grandchildren are coming home and telling them, and what their children who have children are telling them. So for me, it's the next 30 years of my life. I'm committed to this, that we have to do whatever we can to save Australia from becoming a socialist country. And Dare to Care was born from that. I heard Dr. Andrew Huberman. Some of your listeners and viewers will know his work. He's a leading neuroscientist, and he recently did an interview which was really interesting with Jordan Peterson. It's worth finding it on YouTube. But a number of his previous interviews, he talked about that he discovered, and I do a lot of neuroscience with my coaching clients. I take them through, because we've got to shift the loop. We've got to break the loop in the brain. And he talked about that in his work. He discovered that you could literally categorize the human species into 2 groups: those who care and those who don't.
Wow. Wow.
And so that's where Dare to Care was born, because my whole life has been a daring adventure, hence my memoir called Dare. And of course, the social enterprise just made so much sense about dare to care. And that's what we're doing. We're going out into the community. We're daring to care with people, and we're wanting to restore social cohesion. We want to strengthen mainstream Australian values, support small local businesses, keep that cash running in our society, and to do whatever we can and advocate for our country, for our sovereignty and our individual sovereignty as well.
It certainly feels to me like the last 2 years of the lockdowns, the COVID, the pandemic, whoever is watching, you'll have your different opinions on that. It certainly feels like that was the crest of a wave that had already been, as you say, creeping along for a long time. And now all of a sudden, everybody is very painfully aware of the disconnection that we have in our society, the fact that we aren't as autonomous as we thought we were as business owners, you know, yada, 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 all those issues that are plaguing us as a society. And it actually feels really, really unjust, which I think is a perfect way to bring about what we were talking about off camera with your justice issue a few years ago. If you could share briefly about that, and then share why the principles that you've put in your book are so practical for today, for people who are wanting to rebuild family, rebuild relationships, rebuild businesses in preparation for the next global catastrophe, whether it be planned or whether it be accidental. Doesn't matter where you sit on the spectrum, there is another thing coming. So the justice and also the book, how does that relate to us today who are watching and listening?
Okay, so many years ago, I was in the entertainment industry. I had the top job in the country. I refused my producer's sexual advances and he sacked me for apparently being too fat. I then took him to court and the commissioner reinstated me. We had no industrial laws back then. The Industrial Relations Act hadn't even been formed. So I was reinstated and I went back to work, and then the producer sacked me a second time. I took him back to the Australian Arbitration and Conciliation Commission. That was the only venue, as it were, that I had an opportunity to state my case. And although the commissioner found in my favour again, he didn't reinstate me because he was concerned about my health. So at that time, I fell into a great deep abyss. This was my life. This was my career. This was my destiny. I had poured heart and soul into this. And I remember vividly sitting on the bathroom floor for days on end, sobbing and working out how could I take my own life, because there was nothing left to live for. So I understand that dreadful, gut-wrenching feeling, and having your identity absolutely stripped from you, all your worth, all your value gone, just gone. And at the time, through no fault of your own, And that was a very difficult yet enlightening time of my life. And so I write about that and then the journey after that in my book, because what motivated me 2.5 years ago to step into the political arena, which is somewhere I never wanted to go, was exactly that repeating itself. History repeated itself for me, because as I looked around me, I saw all of these good, hardworking people, like I was, a good person with a good moral compass, losing their jobs, being mandated, having to make the most dreadful decision in their life to go against their own intuition and lose all their freedoms, their God-given freedoms, in fact, in order to be jabbed to keep their job. That to me just was abhorrent. And that's what made me step into the political arena, to be a voice for those people. And that's why in this book, when I've written it over these many, many years, it's been many years in the writing, I was able to empathize with what happened with everybody. And the key at the end of the day is you can either wallow in it, and as I say in the book, have a pity party for one, and that has its payoffs, to have a pity party for one when you're there, or you can actually dare. You can dare to stand up and say, no, this circumstance will not beat me. And when you make that decision, you're making it in the place of self-responsibility, not blaming somebody else or judging somebody else or saying it's the government's fault, etc., because sure, we want to do that for a while and that's okay, we have a vent. But if we stay in that energy, what will happen is we will create more of that reality. We'll create more of it. So we need to move on and go, right, I dare to be fearless. I dare to look at how was I not prepared for this? And last 2.5 years was hard to prepare for, folks. I totally understand it. But what it does is it draws a line in the sand for our future, our personal future and our business future. And so we have to look at, right, how do I make sure this doesn't happen to me again? This doesn't happen to my business again. And as business owners, that's when we have to stop and we have to take some time out. We have to sit with ourselves again. What does success look like by the end of 2022? Then you go, what does success look like by the end of 2023? And then you start asking yourself, how do I get there? What are the strategies I need to put in place? Very importantly, what are the systems I need to put in place? Because having been a quality manager and having all of my businesses quality accredited, I'm quite aghast that so many businesses do not have quality systems in place at all. And that's why people can't make money. If you don't have the systems, it's very hard to make money consistently and ongoingly and with comfort. And then the third thing you've got to look at is, where is my support coming from? So we need strategies, systems, and support. So before the end of 2022, sit down, take a day off. I do it every New Year's Day. I do it every New Year's Day. I pull out my journal. I do all of my personal goal setting and intention setting. And then I look at, how does this relate to my business? And what do I need to do with my business? And if you think about it, to take one day out each year to actually create and map out your plan for the year so that you can match the frequency of that reality that you've mapped out for the year. And that's how it ties together, because goal setting of itself is, oh, that's nice. You have ink on paper and you've got a few dot points. No, you have to match the frequency of that reality that you've mapped out every day. Got to dare, you've got to be fearless, you've got to have the conviction, you've got to have the commitment. And you've got to be able to do those things, feel those things, think those things. And that's when we come back to the other aspects of mindset mastery, energy mastery, and skills mastery.
That's so good. I'm going to do two scenarios right now. There are some people that are on this call right now that are feeling very overwhelmed and very offended / angry at you saying to them that it's all in your mindset, and if it is to be it's up to me, because it is very easy. And we have good reason to explain it. Absolutely. To the government. However, that's not going to help us for the next chapter. So what would you say to those people who really do feel quite offended right now and actually don't feel like they are the master of their own ship, they are the captain of their own destiny? What would you say to those people?
Firstly, I appreciate how you feel, because I've been there and it isn't a nice place to be in. And what we tend not to do is grieve. We tend not to grieve. And I would say to you, have you grieved for the loss of everything that you've lost? Wow. Because until we grieve and we release that energy, we will never be able to move forward. And I often say to people when I'm coaching and counseling is, do the big grief. do the rant and the rave and walk around. And if you're going to rant and rave and you're going to get really vocal about it, say what you do want. Don't say what you don't want or what's gone wrong. Say what you do want. Say what you do deserve. Say where you want to be in the next 3 years, because anger is a wonderful creative force for change, except
Yes.
we've been conditioned to use anger as a negative rather than to use it as a positive. And then once you've shifted that energy, and I understand it's going to come back on you, and that's what I write in the book. I was still crying years after that event. I was still dealing with it. 15 years after that event, it still crept up. So be kind with yourself and go, okay, that's happened now. There's my line in the sand. I say that everybody has a line in the sand in their life. My line in the sand was when I was 30. That prepared me for what happened in the last 2.5 years. For many people, the last 2.5 years, millions of people, that was their line in the sand. And so I understand how it feels because I've been there, but I also understand how to get past that line in the sand and to the next years. And that's the key, is finding people. That's what I talked about before, support. People who've already done that. People who've already been on the brink and have moved past the brink. Because if you hang out with other people who are all on the same brink, you're not going to get anywhere, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with.
That's right.
So, yeah, and that's what Dare to Care was about, is building a tribe, building a community of people who have already found their line in the sand years ago. So when this happened at 2.5 years, basically all of my team that are there, they were prepared. They knew what was coming. They knew how this was going to pan out. So they're very strong. They're very fearless and very empowered. So that's why we built this, my volunteer team and myself, so people can go, right, let's go and hang out with them for a while. Let's go and just go to their sessions and let's talk to these people, because we need that support. And map it out, grit your teeth and go, right. And I would say one last thing. If you're really pissed off with the government's responses, I highly recommend that you become more politically involved. And even if that is getting involved in a political party that you hate, but is the most closest aligned to your values, get in there and get your voice heard. Because there's nothing like taking good, strong action and getting your voice heard and having a seat at the table of local power.
So good. You've totally spoken to the second group of people already that I was going to ask you about. But what would be practical suggestions for people who say, yes, Diane, I hear you, I'm ready to go, I want to move forward? So write down our 5 goals of what success actually looks like. What does success look like in our life? You say on the first of the year, map it all out. Take the time to visualize, what do I want my business to look like? What does success look like to me? Because then the action plan will come out of the vision. And number 3, get yourself involved politically, so that when we do have governance issues in the future, we don't only need to rely on self-governance, we need to be able to rely on people who are supposedly representing us. So is Dare to Care going to be a social initiative, picnic type thing, as well as political, as well as business? It is a multifaceted group.
So from our point of view, we have 3 aspects of advocacy, and that's social, political, and business. So we'll be doing a number of business events next year. Of course, the social advocacy with personal health and well-being and social events. And then, of course, with political advocacy and giving people opportunities to find out more about how the power you have in the vote that you have within a political party is truly outstanding. And if you don't like the candidates that are up for offer, go in there and make your vote count during pre-selection.
Right.
Because our country has been conditioned for many, many years to either be a two-party preferred system.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people who've said to me, I used to always vote Liberal. They've let me down. They've betrayed me. I hate them with a vengeance. I'll never vote for them again. And then I say, well, who are you going to vote for and that your vote is going to get across the line and get them in?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And of course, we've seen that hasn't happened, because there are a lot of good candidates who did not get voted in because of the mindset of the general voting public.
Yes.
So I would say to disenfranchised Liberal voters, get into the party, get in and have your voice heard and your vote counted in the party, and pre-select better candidates that will stand up for you.
Yes.
And the same would be true for the Labor Party. If you've always been a Labor Party voter and you don't like where they're going, particularly after this budget, okay, but you still want the Labor Party, is your choice. Get into the Labor Party then. Get your voice heard at the table. We must start to become involved. We must stop this "she'll be right, mate," because let's be sensible, we're not right, mate, now. 30 years, like in my lifetime particularly, of looking at Australia and what's gone on and having that very laissez-faire, she'll be right, mate life is like, no, it's not going to be right. And
Yeah.
we need to pull ourselves back from the brink. We need to do that individually and personally and through our community and through our families. But we also need to do it politically. And we've got to say no. And it is a long game. It's a long game. Again, we've got to look at where do we want this country to be when we go to the federal elections in 4 years' time? What do we want it to look like? So, and we've got to get those candidates in now. So we all need to become more involved in life.
So good. Folks, before you sits a woman who has made it in business. She understands systems. She understands strategies. 12 books under her belt, was instrumental, I would say, in getting industrial relations laws actually brought into the country. The next 30 years of Diane's life are going to be dedicated to rebuilding, restoring, fighting back for the country that she loves. And this is not a woman who is reactive. This is a woman who is proactive, who has systems, who has a vision, who has a linear timeline as to how she's going to roll out Dare to Care. So can I encourage you to come along to the book launch on Saturday? I'm going to be there. Diane's obviously going to be there. Diane's team will be there. Like-minded people are going to be there. Dare to Care is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful initiative that really does have legs. It's actually going to stand the test of time. So come along to the book launch, get down your 5 goals. What does success look like to you? Get involved with a political party and come and meet some like-minded people, because we cannot continue this lone wolf, little Aussie battler mentality. We must get involved as a cohesive community. So Diane, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And just finally, before I let you go, how can people connect with you online, both for your coaching and training services, business services, and also the Dare to Care social enterprise group?
The easiest way to do it is to go to all the W's, dianedemetri.com. That will take you to a landing page, and from that landing page, you'll have 3 different options, whether it be professional development, personal development, or political and social advocacy, and just jump into whichever one you're interested in, and then just have a bit of a surf around and a bit of a look at everything. And there's lots of ways you can get in touch with me. You can subscribe to the newsletters. You can contact me through the contact form. On all of those pages, there's a contact form that comes into my computer and I personally respond to.
Wonderful. Well, Diane, thank you so much again for your time. It's an absolute gift to us Fair Business Australians, and I look forward to meeting you again in person on Saturday and to doing what I can do to assist your journey with the Dare to Care community initiative. Folks, thanks so much. We'll see you again for the next guest that I have. Diane, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Would you like to be featured on our podcast? We'd love to hear how your business products and services can help rebuild local small businesses and local communities. Jump online today at fairbusinessaustralia.com.au.